Ladies and gentlemen, all gamers and lamers, I welcome you to Project Cars. Welcome to Project Cars. Ha! 'Tis but a trick! Well, kind of. A lot of my races in hypercars, such as the McLaren P1, started a lot like that due to the fact that I've never actually driven something so powerful. If I'd known what so much power felt like, I'm sure it would have gone more like this race is going now. Smoothly, under control, or tame-like. Because Project Cars is no Dirt 3 or Mario Kart. It's a rip your heart out and burn it as a fuel kind of racer. It's one of them simulators. And simulate it does. If you're obsessed with complete control over your car, look no further. Project Cars simulates in meticulous detail every single aspect of racing, down to the difference in tire pressures on a particular tire compound after intense braking on a moist track. If you didn't follow that, don't worry. Or do. Project Cars doesn't really hold your hand. Sure, it tries with its little description boxes, but knowing a decent bit about cars, and especially racing in general, will take you much further than any in-game tutorials. Project Cars only points out things specific to the game or interface itself, and not much focus is given to teaching you racing. This plethora of settings is wildly confusing to a newcomer, and that makes it highly inaccessible. And for gearheads, that's a brilliant way of doing things. They are not babied. They can disable every assist and enable every simulation parameter and just go crazy. But for others, enjoyment is highly dependent upon the player's willingness to learn via the internet or by simply trying and failing repeatedly. I'm a follower of the latter, and I pay dearly for it. I played for hours and hours, crashing, stalling, going the wrong way, downshifting at the wrong moment, wasting precious power, etc., etc., before all the pieces finally began to make sense. It's a dastardly complex game. It's a simulator. That's not to say that you can't play without these complexities. For example, let's make this as arcadey as possible and try a race.
Go, go, go!
Okay, so you can't really avoid the complex stuff. The main effect of nerfing the settings is that the difficulty doesn't really change. It's reasonably realistic the entire time. Racing without these safeguards allows for an increase in difficulty at times. You have to worry about going too hard on your tires, which can make you lose grip in the corners and speed on the straightaways, worry about your fuel tank, worry about crashing and damaging one of the many intricate systems. So you can disable some of the difficult elements, but in the end it's still a very challenging racing simulator. The only other real option you have is AI difficulty, which at 10 of 100 is stupid, and at 100 of 100 is impossible to beat. Which brings me back to my main point. It's a racing sim, so you better play it like one. Turn every automated system back off, shift like a professional racer, brake when you think you should and not when guides tell you to. If you get the hang of, or already have the hang of, legitimate racing, then you'll have a blast, overtaking opponents, besting your own lap times, balancing your needs just long enough to avoid the pits and to finish a race. All of it is extremely satisfying, which is why at 7 hours in, I was still struggling with slower cars, but was having a brilliant time. Now let's say you somehow tire a particular vehicle or track out. Then you can just move on to another. There are 29 different tracks, many of which have their own derivatives. For example, you can try your hand at the famous Nürburgring, or one of its 7 split-up tracks. There are some 77 cars, all real licensed famous cars. No Lamborghini, or Porsche 918 Spider, though. There are online matches with strangers, online matches with friends, offline with bots, offline time trials, and a career mode. You simply cannot run out of content. And it's all so gorgeous. Every car model is sculpted and painted like something angelic. Each track is a startlingly accurate portrayal of its real-life counterpart. Effects are plenty, and just goodness, it is good looking. And for those of you with lower spec PCs, there's a load of video settings to play with. I often don't discuss controls of a game, but Project Cars and its infinite complexity and depth warrants a mention. If you have some sort of controller, you can perfect its setup. There are a ridiculous number of presets for racing wheels, a couple controller options, and of course a keyboard preset. Because I'm not rich enough to afford any of the wheels, I use, and recommend, a good Xbox 360 controller with a keyboard setup for weird keys, such as calling in a pit stop, or starting the engine, or disabling anti-lock brakes, weird things like that. Every device can be extremely fine-tuned and configured, so don't worry about disagreeing with the presets. If you've got it, Project Cars will run it. Now, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. No game is perfect. Ta-da. Project Cars has a glaring problem here, though. For those who want to play it but don't know how to race, there lies a very frustrating journey ahead. Project Cars would do well to introduce tutorials on the actual mechanics of racing. Other than that, the extent of most of the problems can be categorized into either unoptimized UI or lacks full controller support outside of actual racing. Nothing a few once-overs can't shake out, Mr. Developer Man. It's a fantastic simulator. It's loaded with content, and every bite of it is tailored to extreme realism, which, at the end of the day, is amazingly challenging and fun. If you can get over the steep learning curve of the sport itself, then you've got yourself what may be the best racing game in the world.